crime. Her little body was found right here.
A young girl is murdered.
We have to find out the truth. Did you kill Sarah Cherry?
We all believed that if we found the truck, we would find her.
A killer sent away for the rest of his life.
Your truck is here, the body's here, and you come out of the woods over here.
No evidence of her found in his truck. I doubt very seriously if he walked 2 to 3 miles from here.
16 years later, some say the police got the wrong man.
I swear to God, I did not take that girl's life.
You got a 12-year-old girl missing late at night, and you don't detain this guy? What's wrong with that picture? Tom, hi. Any new information?
My name is Jerry Pallas. I'm a private investigator and a former detective with the New York City Police Department.
He's taken into custody at 8:30 p.m., right? 8:30 p.m.
Court TV has asked me and my partner, former NYPD homicide detective Reggie Britt, to help investigate a controversial murder case. At 3 p.m. on July 6, 1988, police were called to a house in Bowdoin, Maine. A woman had come home from work to find her baby asleep in her crib. But Sarah Cherry, the 12-year-old babysitter she had hired, was nowhere to be found. Police searched the area and found a notebook and a car repair estimate at the foot of the driveway. Both appeared to belong to a person named Dennis Dechaine. By 9:30 p.m., there was still no sign of Sarah. But as the police circled the area, they came across a young man who claimed he'd been fishing and had gotten lost in the woods and couldn't find his truck. That man was Dennis Dechaine. 2 days later, searchers found the body of Sarah Cherry. It was deep in the woods, 3 miles from the house where she had been babysitting. Dechaine's truck was found just 150 yards away. At trial, the prosecution was able to show that the girl had been bound with rope and a scarf that came from Dechaine's truck. And though there were no witnesses to the abduction or murder, it took a jury less than 10 hours to find the defendant guilty. He was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Dechaine has always denied any involvement in the murder, and now his defense team says they have the evidence to prove it.
They're going to let us look at all the evidence from the crime scene. They're going to let us look at the evidence from the truck, the rope and everything.
After researching this case for nearly 10 months, it was time to head up to Maine and see for ourselves.
Why would he just jump up and just viciously murder a 12-year-old girl? And furthermore, he didn't know the girl, did he? I don't think he knew her. He didn't know her or anybody in her family.
No.
It's got to be something they didn't uncover yet.
The next day, we headed out to meet Dennis Dechaine. Before the murder, Dennis Dechaine's life seemed to be going well. In 1983, he married his college sweetheart. And soon after, the couple started a small but successful farming business in the tiny town of Bowdoin, about half an hour north of Portland. We wanted to speak to Dennis's wife, but she had moved out to Colorado and moved on with her life. Although she supported Dennis throughout his trial, a rift had grown in their marriage. Dennis had a drug problem. That's what he claimed he was doing in the woods the day Sarah Cherry disappeared, taking drugs.
But why was Dennis, he's got a 50-acre farm. You know, if I'm going to do drugs, I'm probably going to stick close to home. Well, you don't want his wife to know. His wife just got on his case about it.
We drove to Maine State Prison, a maximum security facility where Dennis Dechaine has spent the last 17 years behind bars. With no possibility of parole, this could be where he'll spend the rest of his life.
Good morning, how are you?
Morning.
So you know what I want you to do now? I want you to take us back to that day. Back to the day
We're talking about
murder
July
of Sarah Cherry.
July 6, 1988. I went basically wandering around the Bowden Woods, found a place to park my truck, and I did drugs. And when the sun started going down, I decided it was time to go home, and I couldn't remember how I'd gotten in there. I was wandering around trying to find my truck, and this old couple happened upon me. They said, "Can we help you? You lost?" A half hour, 45 minutes into the search for my truck, we happened on a police cruiser, a sheriff's car, and we flagged them down, and I jumped in with them, and that's when my nightmare began.
Were you still high?
Oh, I was, yes, very much so. And it was terrifying. They start asking me questions, and I mean, getting in my face, yelling and screaming, that type of thing. This went on, and they brought in a state police detective, and then he said, "Are you willing, when we find your truck, are you willing to let us have it to do an analysis?" He says, "Well, if Sarah Cherry has been in your truck, we will know." I said, "Well, by all means, take the truck." Okay, they held me there another hour or so, and then they took me home. The next day, they show up in the morning. Cops show up in my yard with a search warrant.
So basically, except for the drugs, you were basically a good kid?
That was my problem. That was my mistress. If you look at how things were going in my life, you know, business-wise, and finally getting to a point where we had to have accountants tell us to spend money to keep the government from getting it. And we were doing well.
If you didn't do it, if you didn't murder this little girl, then who did?
Somebody who knew her. I'm convinced of that. This was Sarah Cherry's first babysitting job. She had been asked by her mom not to let anybody into the house that she didn't know, and if anybody showed up in the driveway, to call her. She never called her mother.
Let me ask you something. Did you kill Sarah Cherry?
Absolutely not. I did not kill Sarah Cherry. And for that matter, I've never hurt anybody in my life.
Well-rehearsed guy. I couldn't read him.
Very, very hard to read.
It's just a strange coincidence to me. Some little girl is missing right over here. My car happens to be found right by her body.
But you can't find it.
Oh, that's still, that's a hell of a coincidence.
That night, we drove to the town of Waterville to meet with Michaela Murphy, the defense attorney who took over the case in 2003. We asked her for her account of Dechaine's story.
He was lost in the woods, and he came out of the woods. He was exhausted, and he started making statements to the police that did not add up and did not make sense because he was terrified that they were going to find out that he'd been in the woods shooting up drugs.
I mean, they found rope from his car. They had some things that supposedly fell out of his truck at the abduction scene. I mean, it sounds kind of overwhelming. You'll agree to that,
absolutely.
right?
I certainly don't fault them at all for focusing on him. That once somebody's charged, the investigation stops and the search for truth stops. And at that point, there's a major shift in everything that's going on the law enforcement side, which is now we have to make our case and we have to convict the guy.
Do we have any DNA evidence about this guy?
After trial's over, the appeals are lost. The State of Maine lab determined that the DNA that was under the victim's fingernails is male DNA, and that male DNA is not Dennis Dechaine's DNA.
So this guy's out there.
That's the part of it that I think is really hard for the state of Maine to even think about, because if Dennis Dechaine is found not guilty, this monster is out there, and they're responsible for that.
Very long way to go on this guy.
I have a different, going there, I felt that Dennis could be the guy. After speaking with her, she made a lot of sense to me about a lot of things, and now I have more of an open mind towards Dennis, that maybe he could be the wrong guy.
He could be the wrong guy.
They brought the tracking dog. Now, if the lab couldn't find any trace of this girl, and the dog couldn't find any trace of the girl, she wasn't in that truck.
On July 8th, 1988, police found Sarah Cherry's body. According to the testimony of Dr. Ronald Roy, the Maine State Medical Examiner, Sarah had already been dead for roughly 36 to 48 hours. But when Reggie reviewed the autopsy photos, he found something that didn't mesh.
She couldn't have been dead too long after they found her. It had to be within 8 to 10 hours because, remember, you're looking at a white girl.
Right.
Female white.
Pink.
It's pink.
Yeah.
She couldn't have been dead that long.
Reggie thought that the autopsy photos showed a lack of lividity, the darkening of the skin that appears when blood pools up a few hours after death. If Reggie was right, then Sarah Cherry wasn't killed until after Dechaine was already in police custody. We tracked down the ME to see what he had to say. He had moved to Canada after the trial.
Hello?
Yes,
Yes, hi, I'm looking for Dr. Ronald Roy.
that's me.
Oh, how do you do, Dr. Roy? This is Jerry Palace from Court TV. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not going to be dealing with you at all, Jerry. I'm not going to talk to anybody about this case, so I'm going to hang up now. Bye.
You really have nothing? Well, that sounds encouraging.
He says, I'm not going to talk to anybody about my past history? Is that what he said?
I mean, that guy cut me off so damn fast. I don't know what he said.
he
He
said-
just didn't want to talk about it. Sounds like he's running.
It's not that he
He's got
can't.
something to hide.
We tried Dr. Roy a few more times, but he never did get back to us. More than ever, Reggie and I needed answers.
Those are the official autopsy crime scene photos. Looking at those pictures.
You're just out of homicide, so you know.
Yeah, he made a big mistake. The body was too fresh. It couldn't have been 36, 40 hours old. It couldn't have been. It was too fresh. No lividity in the body.
Yeah, they found the body a little after 12 on the 8th. But now that takes Dennis out of the picture.
We headed off to see the house where Sarah Cherry was abducted from.
It's a rural area. Look at it.
Very rude.
Nothing. You know, they do the simplest things like canvas, right?
Canvas the whole
Canvas
area.
the area.
It's a sparsely populated area, and we wondered what steps the police took to search for witnesses.
Did anybody see anything? Anybody see a truck? Anybody see somebody? Anything?
He talked to all the
You know what I
people
mean?
in the area.
There's always busybodies. There's always somebody looking out their window.
Yes.
Especially in a neighborhood like this. You know, you're going to see somebody, a truck going by. You know, sometimes people have nothing to do but maybe look out the window.
Right. Yeah, now we're getting into it. This is thick woods.
You put this in July, you
That's
don't see nothing.
That's why it took that long to find her. Jerry, right up here is the house where she was babysitting the infant.
According to the prosecution, Dechaine lured Sarah outside and into his truck, then drove her 3 miles away where he killed her.
So whoever it is either goes to the door or she's outside playing.
The other doubt there was no evidence of her found in his truck. I
Right.
doubt very seriously if he walked 2 to 3 miles from here.
Yeah, let's get out of here. Let's go to the crime
Let's go to
scene.
the crime scene. Then we left here, made a left.
Right.
Then you made a right down here. And we get a little farther up the road to the left there. It should be the crime scene. When
Yeah,
we
what do
get
they
to those
say now?
stick, truck was found over here. So the body would have been found up here.
Yeah, look at this, man. Yeah, this is really
See how thick
stuff.
it was? You can imagine what that would have been like in July. This is where it was, right?
We're talking right here. Right
Her little body was found right here.
Yeah.
The body had been hidden under a mound of leaves and brush. It took over 100 searches, nearly 2 days to find her. The official cause of death was strangulation. An old scarf was found around her neck, her wrist bound with a short piece of rope. The police determined that both items came from Dechaine's truck, which was found only 150 yards away.
And the truck was what?
Right over that way. It definitely bothers me.
Didn't it feel eerie just standing here?
12 years snuffed out. Let's go, Reggie. I've seen enough, man. Let's go. You getting it all right?
I'm fine. A little bit disturbed.
Yeah. Unbelievable, huh? Poor kid.
There's a whole lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of stuff that we have to, that isn't explained.
Yeah, the thing about the truck bothers me.
That's what I'm saying.
Rope came from his truck. Papers found
Yeah, but he
at the
said
scene
that
from his
he
truck.
lost his truck, he was shooting drugs. Anybody could have took that from his truck.
The murder of Sarah Cherry was big news in Bowdoin, a usually sleepy New England town. The case caught the attention of a former ATF agent named Jim Moore. Moore was so fascinated with the case that he set out to write a book.
He asked early on to have his DNA checked. Did you ever hear of a guilty guy wants his DNA checked before the trial and asking the state to do it? And then what I found out too, which the police never told anybody, they brought the tracking dog. And they had the tracking dog smell Sarah Cherry's clothing and then put him in the cab of the truck. Now, if the lab couldn't find any trace of this girl and the dog couldn't find any trace of the girl, she wasn't in that truck. The hairs on her body have been incinerated by the state. The fingerprints that were found on the door of the house where she was abducted are missing now. Well, the state says they can't find them.
And there's a rape test kit.
The rape
test kit has been incinerated.
And what about the items from his truck that was found in the driveway?
Well, that's the funny thing. Now, there was 180 items they inventoried in his truck. You know, Kleenex, bottle caps, a beer bottle, a book. 180 items, and out of that, the only two to fall out had his name on them. That's a pretty big coincidence.
Didn't they take a blood from Dennis?
That's what I understand. They've lost that too.
What happened to that?
They've lost it, apparently.
What about this confession that the police say they obtained?
Okay, Detective Westrom was from the Saginaw County Sheriff's Office. He had been a detective for 2 days at the time. And he says that after he fingerprinted Dennis, that Dennis was bawling and crying, and he wrote down a lot of things he claims Dennis said. And the worst thing he wrote down was Dennis said, "How could I kill her?" And then he crosses out, "How could." You can see this on his notes, in his own handwriting. And he writes above it, "Why did?" So he changed "How could I kill her?" into "Why did I kill her?"
This doesn't paint a good picture about the government here, or the state police, or the Attorney General's office.
There was another suspect named Senecal. Senecal had married the former wife of Sarah Cherry's stepfather. So Senecal knew her. He gave an alibi. I tried to check it out, and it fell apart. He had no alibi.
Is there any doubt in your mind at this point that Dennis Dechaine is the wrong man?
Well, look, people make mistakes. People lie. People do anything. Science doesn't lie. Science has no axe to grind.
You're on a mission, huh?
Hey, I spent 25 years putting bad guys in, and I'm finding out it's taken me 15 years to get one guy out.
There was no confessions. There was no videotape confessions. There were no written confessions. But he read into the trial that he confessed, and apparently one of those detectives are reading from their notes a confession.
I mean, from being in New York, a lot of times you'll either get the guy to write a statement out, or you'll call the district attorney, a stenographer comes down, they videotape the confession. Here, none of that was done. Up to this point, neither the police nor the prosecutor would agree to meet with us. And what we would find out the next day led us to doubt the entire police investigation.
You got a 12-year-old girl missing late at night. You got this guy lying about who he is and where he was, and you don't detain this guy? What's wrong with that picture?
3 months after Dechaine's arrest, state psychologists questioned him about the crime in a taped interview. And it was that interview that the prosecutor later pointed to as proof of Dechaine's guilt.
Are you aware that the video camera is on and a videotape is being made of this interview right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
When I think back on it now, I guess what really shocked me was when I first saw the picture of the girl in the newspaper. That really made me feel like it isn't possible that I could be involved in this.
But Reggie and I watched the whole tape, and we didn't see even the slightest hint of a confession. At this point, the allegations against the police were shocking. Lost blood tests, a destroyed rape kit, made-up confessions, and other suspects that were never investigated. But that was only one side of the story. Problem was, neither the police nor the prosecutor would tell us the other side. I mean, there may be a lot of things here that could be complete inaccuracies that we have so far that he could straighten out and say, listen, this is the way it is. That's the way it was, you know? And the other big thing I want to ask this guy is about the rape test kits.
Yeah, we got to
Why were they destroyed?
Why was Dennis's blood test sample destroyed?
Let him tell a story from his standpoint. Mark Westrom, the first detective on the scene that night, wouldn't even return my calls.
Oh, you've reached the voicemail of Sheriff Mark Westrom. Please leave a message and I'll call you back as soon as I can. Thanks.
Hi, Sheriff Westrom. This is Jerry Palace again from Court TV. I'd appreciate a phone call back, please. It's very important that I speak with you about the Dennis Dechaine case.
Make a right turn.
There it is, courthouse, right? We decided to just head over to his office to see if we could track him down.
I'm looking for Sheriff Mark Westrom.
But Westrom was nowhere to be found.
Nobody's around.
Nobody in there.
Finally, we were told that we could find the sheriff at his other office across town.
Well,
great, thank you very much.
That's what she said?
But when we got there, we were told that he had gone down to Portland for the day.
Got his return phone calls. Come here, he's in Portland.
Jerry, like hell he's in Portland.
He knows we're around, we're probably not going away.
You know, we heard one side so far, basically, that, you know, Dennis is innocent, probably the wrong man. You know, now you're the police officer that investigated this case. What do you have to say? A little while later, we did get a call from Dan Reed, one of Westrom's deputies. Reed, a rookie at the time, was the first to respond to the Cherry abduction. He was also in a police cruiser that Dechaine flagged down later that night. What was your immediate impression of Dennis when you first saw him?
You know, it was his eyes that, his eyes looked very fearful. One of his knuckles was still bleeding. He had what appeared to be almost looked like a bite mark on one of his biceps. And the most troublesome was looked like tiny little handprints, fingers pointing down on both sides of his shoulders.
I mean, you remember like these handprints?
I remember those handprints as if if it happened yesterday.
Did he tell you anything else about being there, what he may have done?
I showed him the road, which was directly in front of us, and asked him if he'd ever been on this road. And first denied it, but then when I mentioned to him, brought to his attention that these documents were found in the driveway on this road, he remembered that, yes, I did go down this road, and I turned around in the driveway. I asked him to describe the house, the driveway that he turned around, and he described the residence to a T. He said he stopped at the end of the driveway, and he urinated on the lawn. And I asked him, you know, is this something that you do every day? Do you always urinate on somebody's lawn?
Now, what are you doing? What are you thinking about this girl at this point? You have some evidence that puts him at that driveway.
My biggest concern at that time was, you know, we want to find his truck as badly as he does. I think we all believed that if we found the truck, we would find her.
Do you remember them ever retrieving the clothes that Dennis was wearing that night? You know anything about that?
I don't.
I mean, they took his truck. Why take his truck and not take him? I would have kept him. I mean, this is X amount of years later we're saying this.
If Dennis would have said that night to you, I don't want you to drive me home, I want to drive my truck home, what would have been the answer?
You know, I probably would not have let him take his truck.
Maybe his clothes should have been taken off his back.
Perhaps they should have been.
What do you think about Dennis Dechaine? You think he's the guy?
I do. I do, only because, well, you know, they're throwing out these theories that he was set up. You know, I find it awfully hard to believe that this man was set up by anybody.
So it's no doubt in your mind?
I have no doubt that Dennis Dechaine is where he belongs.
Got a 12-year-old girl missing late at night. You know she ain't with none of her girlfriends. You got this guy lying about who he is and where he was, and his receipts found with his name on it in the driveway of where the girl was abducted from.
Right.
And you know, detain this guy? What's wrong with that picture?
We got to go to we got this guy Dennis. Are there any other sexual predators that we know about in the area? This guy, what is his name? Doug Senecal. Doug Senecal, right. Yeah, I mean, what about that? What about those guys?
I don't know, it sounds like somebody's dropping the ball here.
Doug Senecal lived in the Bodenham area. His daughter was friends with Sarah Cherry.
You're kidding.
No.
We were getting nowhere with the prosecution, so we turned our attention to finding out more about Dennis Dechaine. The youngest of 4 brothers, Dechaine had grown up near the Canadian border, in the small town of Madawaska, Maine. By the time he was 14, both of Dennis's parents had died, which was when, according to Dennis, he turned to drugs. 2 of Dennis's brothers, Phil and Don, drove down from Madawaska to meet with us. They said they had information that could prove that their brother was innocent.
Dennis is the type of guy who would always put the other guy ahead of him.
Let me ask you, is it possible do drugs like amphetamine or something else that may have made your brother go over the edge?
Well, for a while that was an issue, you know, but according to a couple psychiatrists and people that we have consulted since, the answer was no. It wouldn't change his behavior. It says it might make him a little disoriented, but not change his behavior.
If it's not your brother, and there's somebody out there, who is it? Does the family or anyone have ideas?
We have ideas, but...
You have a name?
You know, I mean...
Your brother's in jail.
My brother's in jail.
You're trying to help your brother get out of jail.
Yeah.
Is there somebody?
I would suspect Doug Senecal, strongly.
What would you like us to ask Doug Senecal?
Is that his DNA underneath Sarah's fingernails?
Dechaine's brothers also told us about a witness named Ralph Jones. Allegedly, Jones had information that Senecal was in the area the same day Sarah Cherry was abducted. Not all the way across town like Senecal had told the police. He even gave Dennis's trial lawyer a sworn statement. In it, Jones says, "There's no question in my mind that it was Doug Senecal's truck that I saw at the end of my driveway." If Jones was telling the truth, it blew Senecal's alibi out of the water. But the prosecution did everything possible to keep Jones or anyone else with information about Senecal from testifying at Dennis's trial.
He knew her. Dennis didn't even know her. How would Dennis know she was at that house? She didn't live there. But he knew her. Senecal knew her. Wouldn't you say so? Dennis didn't even know the girl.
From all we had learned about Dechaine, he didn't seem like the type of person to commit such a horrible crime. So we sent our case files to an old colleague named Ray Pierce.
If we have any further questions...
Ray was a criminal profiler for the NYPD and had received his training from the FBI. It would take Ray a couple of days to review everything, so in the meantime, we focused on tracking down Doug Senecal. Originally, we figured that he's the kind of guy that would stay local. But now we were hearing that he might have left the state.
Tom. Hi, it's Jerry Palace. How are you, buddy?
Tom Cumler is a local private investigator who's been working with Dennis's attorney.
Meet you in that parking lot, right? Great.
He agreed to meet with us to share what he knew about Senecal.
Doug Senecal lived in the Bodenham area where Sarah Cherry was murdered. He was involved in a situation with his daughter. He was charged with molesting his daughter.
His own daughter?
His own daughter.
You're kidding.
No. And before, his daughter was friends with Sarah Cherry. Before he can be brought to trial for the sex offense, he sends his daughter to California so that she can't testify against him. And the state ends up dropping the charges. I attempted to interview him down in Florida last year, and I, in fact, did interview him over the telephone.
Is that where he is right now?
He is in Florida right now.
You got his address and everything?
I have his address. I can give it to you. He was going to hang up on me initially, and he said that I was the first person he had spoken to about this, that he'd slammed the door many times on different reporters. He's very paranoid and very irrational. He's aware that most of his family thinks he did this.
Really?
His own family?
Yeah, and I said, well, give me your DNA, and you know it's not you. And you can lay this in front of your family. You can have it printed in the local newspapers in Maine, so people up here now know that you're not the person. He said, I'm not doing that, because Dennis's attorney's had my DNA for a long time, and I know he's planted it.
He actually said that.
He said that.
You think we'll be able to talk to him in the trailer park? I hope he said he was a little erratic. Strange.
Maybe you talk to him. It looks like we're going to Florida.
The allegations against Doug Senecal were starting to pile up. And now that we knew he was in Florida, it was time to head south and talk to him ourselves.
Ms. Senecal, how do you do? My name is Jerry Palace. I'm a reporter with Court TV.
Ten months into our investigation, Reggie and I were having our doubts as to whether Dennis could have committed this crime. According to his team, the key to freeing Dennis was underneath Sarah Cherry's fingernails.
It's beautiful. Better than snow.
70 degrees.
Yep.
Hey, Jerry, it's Michaela. Hi.
Good. How are you?
After arriving in Florida, we spent the morning talking with Dechaine's attorney and private investigator. They believe that if they can get a sample of Senecal's DNA, they'll prove their client's innocence once and for all.
Maybe if we tell them, listen, we'll either get you directly in touch with the district attorney's office so they can do the test. If you want, we'll do it as Court TV, totally impartial, you know? All I want to see is get this moved from A to B and tested.
Do we have a picture of him somewhere?
Doug Senecal. Dechaine.
Here he is. Doug Senecal.
At the time of Sarah Cherry's abduction, Senecal was reportedly working as a mason. Earlier that year, he was indicted on 2 counts of illegal sexual contact with his own stepdaughters. Had his case gone to trial, one of the witnesses against him might have been 12-year-old Sarah Cherry.
Must be just a couple mosquitoes off that pond over there. Looks all right.
I don't know. Don't look all right to me.
Well, I don't see no dog, so that's something that looks all right. Haven't heard anything barking yet. What's the number? You said E, right?
It's probably that one.
Yeah, that's gotta be it.
They look like somebody from Maine.
Is that Doug?
It's on here somewhere.
Nobody was home at Senecal's house.
Come back. We got time back.
We circled the area for a few hours, hoping he'd show up. Finally, we decided to call him.
I go to the main road, we'll give him a call.
Is it ringing?
Yeah, answer machine came on.
He's probably working.
Let's try a little later on.
There were a lot of things pointing to Dennis Dechaine's involvement. His admitted use of drugs, the proximity of his truck to the body, his documents found in the driveway, and the scarf from his truck used to strangle the victim. But so far, Reggie and I were finding more and more holes in the prosecution's case, and the reasonable doubt was starting to pile up. What if somebody set him up, using the items from his truck to commit the murder? What if Dennis was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time?
Find this guy. If it takes all night, we're gonna find Doug.
That's right. Let's get some coffee, huh?
Reggie and I drove by Senecal's house later that night, but there still was no sign of him.
Doesn't go by too much. There's friggin' dogs over here. Damn.
We kept calling, but only got his answering machine. Then our luck changed.
Hello, Doug Senecal, please.
Ms. Senecal, how do you do? My name is Jerry Palace. I'm a reporter with Court TV. I was wondering if I could speak to you. It's about the Dennis Dechaine case. Do you remember that? Well, what about it is that, obviously you know that people have been pointing a finger at you. Nothing to say. I mean, wouldn't you like to put these stories all to rest? For what reason? For your own good name. I mean, you have nothing to hide, right? So you rather go down saying, I have nothing to say. Why would you do that? Senecal was pretty angry and said that if we stepped foot on his property, he'd call the cops. By you not coming forward, it almost sounds like...
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Yeah. I think he hung up.
Whoa. Jeez, he is paranoid.
He doesn't want to say anything. I mean, that's it. Dennis Dechaine, not him. To me, it sounds like he's almost hiding something. He says if we come there, step onto his property, go up his stairs, whatever, he'll call the police. The law will be here.
He's paranoid.
He wasn't a happy camper. There's no way this guy's gonna talk. We tried Senecal a few more times, but we weren't able to convince him to speak with us. But just as Reggie and I were about to get some dinner, Ray Pierce, our criminal profiler, called.
Oh, we've been doing a lot of running around. So, what do you think?
Ray had looked at all the evidence we had sent him and was ready to give us his opinion.
It's probably one person that did this without a doubt.
Okay.
It's obviously a male white.
Right now, I can't tell you anything better than he's probably over the age of 19.
Normally, if you're talking about a random serial killer, they're lucky if they go 10 or 20 feet into the woods off a highway.
And here is someone that took the time to really take her into the woods. So you're talking about someone at that time that was in pretty good physical condition.
So a strong guy.
Yeah.
Ray, I can ask you, do you think this happened before? Was this a first time for somebody like this? Because it did look, like this guy had done it before to me.
Yeah, I don't know if he fits that category. With a young child like that, there are usually other activities. Guys stalking, peeping Toms.
Building up to it. Or he's committed other crimes like that.
See, a person like this generally is kind of withdrawn. Kind of a loner, not to say that he can't be married.
But it's much more likely to be that loner, that person that would be a little bit strange.
If you had kids, you'd say, stay away from that type of person.
What Ray was saying was that Dechaine didn't fit the profile. And he also had some advice. If we really wanted to be sure about Dechaine, we should go back to the prison and interview him again. But this time hit him hard, just like the cops did in the woods that night. And we're forgetting the main person here. This girl that was murdered. Do you remember her?
Yes.
What was done to her?
Look at the picture.
At the suggestion of our criminal profiler, we headed back to Maine to meet with Dennis one more time. Our plan was to go at Dennis hard, just like the cops did the night Sarah Cherry disappeared. We gotta really try and rattle his cage big time. If he was guilty, he'd likely clam up and wouldn't fight back. But if he was really innocent, he'd get angry and possibly walk.
You're back.
We're back.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting you back.
Dennis, since we last saw you, we've been all over the place. I mean, your supporters, detractors, the prosecutor, the police. Doug Senecal.
Yes.
We spoke to Doug Senecal.
You did?
He has an alibi.
He has all kinds of time to go to Bowden and do the dirty deed.
And another thing that bothers me, here you are in a police car, the back of a police car, you're being interviewed, you're claiming that they're harassing you.
And you're the only lead they got at 9 o'clock at night, connecting them to this little girl. How did you expect them to question you?
Well, they grilled me pretty much the way you are now, except a little more amplified, in such a fashion that I was in fear of my life.
Why didn't you say, you're a grown man, I'm going home?
I didn't know where my truck was. How am I getting home? They're accusing me of being involved in the disappearance of this girl, and I felt I had to set it straight, so I did my level best.
Dennis, you're not being honest with us.
I am being honest.
No, you're
with
not.
You. I was getting high. That's what I was hiding. I didn't want to tell them I was getting high.
Dennis, we're getting fed a lot of bull over here, and we're forgetting the main person here. This girl that was murdered, do you remember her?
Yes.
What was done to her?
Look at the picture.
Huh? Do you remember? Do you know what was done to her?
Yes, I do.
You did it.
I've never harmed a person in my
sakes.
life. I've never harmed a person in my life.
Look at this girl, Dennis. Look at this girl. You took her life.
I didn't have anything to do with this. Say what you want.
What kind of person would do this to this little girl? What kind of person?
A goddamn monster, and I'm not
a monster?
him.
You're not that monster?
No, Sarah Cherry. I've never seen her before in my life.
You killed her.
And you're sorely mistaken. So
I'm not sorely mistaken.
I guess we're done here, huh?
Take it easy, Dennis. Hey, you know what? We do this all the time. We got to put these guys to the test. I don't want nobody getting out of these places that may have killed someone. Dennis had passed our test, and after nearly a year of investigation, we concluded that he very possibly could be the wrong man.
They didn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Other people they could have looked at, and they didn't. I mean, you want to see if this guy's involved in this murder, yet they don't do the simple things. That's something they should have done. I think that's police work 101.
They did a horrible job. The Attorney General's office, the state police, and the local police. He definitely deserves another trial.
We got one vicious killer out there who really should be behind bars. Dennis Dechaine has spent the last 17 years behind bars. And unless something major happens in his hearing coming up next fall, he'll probably spend the rest of his life there. We weren't completely convinced that Doug Senecal had anything to do with this crime. But one thing we did know was that Dennis didn't get a fair trial. The prosecution blocked evidence of other potential suspects, presented half-truths to the jury, and opposed DNA testing during the trial. We think that if the jury had heard all of the evidence, Dechaine very well could be a free man today.